This is Josh with integratingpresence.com.
And that was actually Neil, not Josh, a friend of mine, who said that he's me. Josh is me. And I know it's a cliche line, but that was fun. And here's the first new podcast since I'm back in Denmark from the UK, this first go-round.
Wholeness and welcome. This is Josh Dippold of integratingpresence.com. And today I have Colin Kingsmill with me. Colin, how's it going?
Going good, thank you. Greetings from Atlantic Canada.
So what I usually do for someone I don't know as well on the podcast here is throw it back to my guest to talk a little bit about themselves, say who they are and what they do. And Colin's already cued me in on a little bit of his story here, but I would just have him jump right back into it here again.
Yeah, hey Josh. So like you, I'm not a big lover of bios. I'm really terrible about speaking about myself, but
Can keep with the abridged version, then if you'd like. Yeah.
Today I do a few things. I love to podcast and have conversations like this. So that's becoming a really from kind of hobby to much more. I do private executive coaching with CEOs and entrepreneurs, and I work with a team that I'm co-founder of called Whole Human Coaching that works with really much more with teams. And our mission is to create cultural cohesion within companies that are going through massive transformation, right? The world, I think, has changed dramatically in the last few years, and workforces and people and humanity have kind of gone forward, and I think the work world is catching up. So we're helping them bridge that gap. And I'm also writing a book called Fearless, which is designed to really help people cross that bridge from fear to bliss. And so that's the abridged version of what I do today.
Well, right on. The big thing about your work now, cultural cohesion, it's a big thing. Why don't we just jump into that real quick?
Sure,
and,
yeah.
Like, first off, just how would you define that? And then kind of what's been lacking on it, and then what's being done now in general.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a two-step process, right? If we look at from a sort of a megatrend perspective, what has happened in the last 20 or 25 years has been such an expansion of novel things, right? That our biology hasn't even caught up to the technological advancements that we've made in the past sort of 15 or 20 years. So our bodies are still adjusting to that. Now, if you think of the workplace and the work culture and the work environment, especially post what happened over the last 3 years, which I don't even want to say the word, but what happened over the last 3 years really, I think, shifted people's minds, right? And shifted their values. And people began to think differently and want different things and define success differently, or to even define how they want to work with the corporation. We've met a lot of people that are perfectly content not to climb a corporate ladder, right? They're really happy where they are. They have great work-life balance. They want to stay there, and they're really content. Whereas the pressure is to push them up and push them forward and all those things that we kind of hinted on before. So the idea of cultural cohesion is, all right, big company or little company, doesn't really matter. Are you aligned? Is your business mission, values, brand promise, is it aligned to where your human workforce is in their minds, right? And so often it's not. And what we do is we work with individuals, right, within the organization to go, okay, well, what is your North Star? What is your kind of leadership toolkit, right? And that's made up of, for me, it's like, what are your values? What are your needs? What is the destination that you want to get to? And what is, kind of your personal brand within the organization itself, right? So what we do is we help people understand who they really are, right? And then we work with the leaders and the managers and the C-suite to make sure that the mission, vision, and values of the company are actually being executed, right? So often we see in businesses, you'll have, the mission statement on the wall or the motivation statement on the wall, and you have all these sort of statements, right? But are they real? Are they being executed? Right? We hear a lot about, people in business saying, I'm kind of disillusioned because our mission and vision says this, and it's a beautiful brand promise, but ultimately I just get told to look at the numbers in the Excel spreadsheet. So it's really that helping leaders and teams come together with true depth, right? That's required today. And then helping the individuals in those teams really kind of discover who they are. And if we can do that, then those two should come closer together. That's the idea.
Well, right on. And I'm wondering now if sometimes it's just discovered that and agreed to that the individual is just not a good fit anymore, or just not a good, yeah. And so how that process goes on, if that's the case, I mean, not to get into a bummer here, but I mean, it could
No.
potentially benefit the individual and the company and how that process works.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you how that works, right? So if you're in an organization and you haven't done the in-depth work on who you are, right? So that's why it's this leadership toolkit, North Star, right? Of what really are my values, right? What are my needs in there? What is my personal brand? Like what do I want people to be saying about me, right? And where do I want to be going? So if you don't have that kind of structure in place for yourself, you have there's the possibility that you're going to be bobbing around within an organization, right? So they tell you where to go, they tell you what to do. The performance reviews are kind of upward, downward sort of waterfall that you might not be ready for. We're also in cultural cohesion. We're looking at how to rethink the performance review, right? Because those are very antiquated tools, we think, right? So this idea, the idea is, you're right that if you discover who you are, right, and you have a solid kind of toolkit for yourself, when something comes along in the organization, like a new opportunity or some work or whatever, you're going to instantly know if it's aligned to who you are, right? And so you can quickly say, you know what, I don't think that's for me, or yes, that's for me because it connects with my toolkit. And if you're recognizing that, wow, all these things that are coming my way aren't really fitting me, then you know that it's time to move on. And that's good for you and that's good for the organization. Because if you're in an organization and you're not living in that sort of integrity of who you are, then you begin to see signs of burnout, depression, maybe anger management, boundary setting, saying yes when you want to say no. There's all the symptoms of not being aligned, and it could be even social interaction at work. You don't want to connect with teams, or you don't want to connect socially or outside the office, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really, I think you're right. It could mean that I need to change, but hallelujah! Wouldn't you rather? Right?
Exactly. And this would have been so helpful for me years and years ago when I was still in the corporate world. And this identifying these core values have been so helpful for me. And I share this with folks too, and then instead of living, a goal obsessed lifestyle, where, one goal ends and then it's just on, one after the other. And I'm not saying don't set goals, obviously not. It's just when we can identify these, I don't know, 2 to 4, somewhere around there, things that just really make my heart sing, make me come alive, just kind of know to my bones. And then every time I can align with them, then I live from that place. And just about every interaction I have can be more satisfying and more fulfilling. and I can keep myself in check with that too. I can bounce these off of people I respect and admire, and teachers and advisors, and get add more wisdom to these as we interact in everyday life too. So talk about how you maybe just about core values in general, and or anything similar to this, and how you might lead people through identifying those
Yeah.
and living and aligning with those.
Yeah, so that's I love your point about goal setting, because it's obviously very important. But for me, as you create that North Star, or that toolkit for yourself, when I say, what is your destination? For me, it's more about it's more about a picture. It's almost like what would you like your life to look like if it was a painting, right? Or an abstract or whatever. And so the destination is more about a feeling, a sense of place, right? A sense of where you feel most centered and most grounded and most you. So the destination does not have to be, I want to be, in New York in a C-suite thing on the 60th floor managing 20,000 people. It could be, but it's more about, how do you want to feel in the pursuit of your purpose, right? As opposed to, again, a finite sort of checkbox thing that you want to get to. How do you want to feel? How do you want to be? How do you want to be? Express that. So that being said, getting to your values is a sometimes can be a really challenging exercise, because, again, like I was saying to you before, we're not taught these things. We're not, especially guys today, men today, aren't taught how to express their needs, right? What are the values that really drive you? So, I was speaking to somebody just in this past week, where the discovery of your personal values is diving deep into those instinctual kind of gut feelings that you've got and expressing them. So that's the exercise that you have to do. Um, it's not easy. It's not an easy process. Sometimes it brings up a lot of things in people. It might bring up some traumas. It might bring up, a lot of stuff. So we need to get to your sort of true value core system. Sometimes we need to deconstruct the narratives and the stories that you've got in your head, right? To reconstruct new ones around those value systems. And 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 in that process of going deep, then you can articulate them. Some people don't even know what they are, and don't know what their needs are, don't know what nourishes them. They just know when their fuel tank is empty, right?
These are very important points. It reminds me of this classic kind of saying, philosophical and spiritual saying, know thyself. And once these are identified, they don't have to be stuck to either. We can we change and evolve. What is it? Muhammad Ali said something like, if you're still the same man you are at 50 that you are at 20, you've wasted 30 years of your life. So it just, that's what I found helpful is being open to evolving and progressing towards even once we think we've identified, having an open mind and going, open to changing and revising those too, and at the same time knowing that where we once were it was part of our journey as well too, and there's nothing wrong with that part in past in our time. Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've had 3 chapters in my life, and I don't regret any of them, right? But what the work that I do love to do with people that I think is beneficial is, okay, that was my past. Let's dive deep into yourself, into you, to discover who you really are, and let's design design the next chapter with intention, right? And I'll tell you why, because I see a lot of people living life, whether it's personally or professionally or both, with a lot of lenses, like opaque lenses that they're looking through. And the work that I love to do is say, all right, forget about everything you've learned, right? um, and I don't mean that in, forget about, what you learned in mathematics class or how to type or whatever, but forget about the conditioning that is no longer serving you. Okay. And let's remove those opaque lenses so you can see clearly, right? And once you can see clearly, right? Once you've stopped and said, "Oh, okay, this is who I am," right? And this is my purpose, this is my destination, my toolkit. Once you've got that and you've cleared out the old stories and the old narratives, then I think life can really become unlimited, and free. So my whole thing is let's get you to a place of freedom, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
This
sorry,
is one of
I'm
my
babbling
core.
on.
No, this is one of my core values too, is being free. And I think, at least from, I'm an American, and I know there's this big narrative in the country that, we're the freest nation in the world. Well, it really depends on what you mean by that. I mean, to me, there's enough of an externality of freedom that if you really want to, you can have the opportunity to go within, which I find is where you're going to find the real being free. So I don't want to get into politics so much, but I think it is mainly an inside job, how we view things, how we perceive things, and then how we respond to things. And you can talk a little
Yeah.
bit more about identifying these narratives and changing narratives as well. But I really like
Yep.
your notion of living from intention, because, basically all of our actions are driven from an intention, even if they're on habit pattern on repeat. There was an intention some point along the line, it seems, that has driven this behavior, even if it's from our ancestors. If they had something,
Sure.
encountered something in their lives, and then they had an intention to do something different and to start this habit pattern, and then that might have just got passed on through the generations. And so we might just be repeating something we learned from our parents that we have no idea why they're doing it that way, but at one point it was driven
Oh,
from intention. Yeah.
100%. I completely agree with you. And when I say, things like trauma, I mean small t trauma, right? Conditioning, that maybe, inside your mother's womb, maybe there was malnutrition, maybe there was fear, maybe there was financial insecurity. All of those messages get transmuted into the child, right? And into the body and into the mind and early childhood development. All of that has a massive impact, I think. And I do believe ancestral knowledge can also, does come through. So I guess the trick for us in this kind of modern society that we live in is to find that awareness, right? And then find that intention and find that responsibility and make it a daily practice. Because going back to the point of freedom, and we don't have to get into politics at all, I don't think, but but uh, but we may be free in Canada or the United States, but there is, I think, we are up against a massive, I don't want to say a battle, but we have to fight every day to have that freedom and that clarity and that intention, because we are being bombarded by, whether it's social media, whether it's food, whether it's big pharma, whether it's government, whether it's mainstream media. All of those things are bombarding us every day. And then I love that book by Brett Weinstein about the hunter-gatherer's guide to the 21st century that says, or we're not ready for this, right? So I say to people that I work with, first of all, be gentle to yourself, because it's crazy out there. And the first thing to do is to start to kind of create some kind of personal kryptonite, right? How do you protect yourself from all of those forces that are taking away your freedom, or designed to take away your freedom, right? So just look at pharmaceuticals, right? Well, you go to the doctor and you say you're not quite, you're feeling a little bit off. Well, they're going to give you, antidepressants or anti-anxiety or antipsychotics or something, right? Instead of asking you about, how's your food, how's your sleep, how's your nutrition, how's your spirituality, what are you reading, like what are you consuming? Are you watching the news at 11 p.m. at night? Are you consuming sort of garbage food? So I agree, freedom, yes, but you got to be a freedom fighter almost, I think.
These are really good points. And we talked earlier about nourishment, though. And what you just spoke to rings true with identifying what nourishes us. You might get a quick high from, or a quick boost from junk food, or, a substance, or even just
Yep.
kind of a spewing out outrage or something like this. But,
Sure.
taking the time to just seeing what really provides a healthy nutriment. And you're talking about media diets. It's the same thing, right? People, it seems so obvious to me now, but back in the day, it wasn't. And so it's just like what you eat. Would you put, crappy food or eat poison, basically, is what a lot of these media diets are. And it's kind of ironic here because we're creating some media here, but I mean, there are plenty of great media out there still that will, nourish our mind, our emotions, our consciousness, our feelings.
Yeah, and I think you can categorize media in a couple of into two categories, right? Like the media that I think you and I are creating is intentional, and I think we have good intention behind it, right? Whereas if you just switch on the news, right, and sit down with it, the intention there is to keep you there so that advertisers can sell you something, right? I mean, the base intention. So it's a question, I think, of being aware of what you're eating, whether it's right, and sitting down on Twitter for an hour, that's fine, as long as you know what you're consuming. And it's like eating a box of chocolates, right? You can sit there and eat one bonbon at a time, but be aware that that's what you're doing, I think. And be select. So I always say to people, stop watching the news and get informed, right? So stop watching the news, which is just, it's a product, right? But if you want to get informed, there's 100 ways to do that, right? Today, especially.
I totally agree. I just don't see the need to read anything. It's a lot of the mainstream. I mean, a headline will be about right, and then can kind of go to someone that has a little bit more caring with just as much, even maybe even more insight onto whatever particular issue it may be. Like you're saying, the major media outlets seem to just be doing the bidding of their paymasters.
Look, it's a business model, and
Sure.
I think a lot of people forget that it's just simply a business model there to sell you something, right? 40 years ago when we had 3 TV channels, it was a different story. But today the news is a product. You've got to be, read the ingredients, know what you're getting, right? Because the mission and intent is not really to inform; it's to keep you there, have you come back, to pay for the advertisers. It's really simple. I mean,
Yeah, and it gets this dopamine hit. But so I wonder how people get around this if they're really addicted to the news and this kind of fear porn and doom and gloom and sound bites and this type of thing. I know usually for me it's getting off one habit. It helps to replace it with a healthier habit. And yeah, I think maybe just going to other sources and still being informed, but something that cares more about one's well-being than not. And then let you address that, and then I'll just jump into another question here. Like, just
Yeah.
in general, what kind of I think challenges do you see the most in your work these days? Like what is kind of some of the most important things that need addressing, either on a societal level, or different various organizational levels, even individual levels.
Yeah, interesting. A couple things. I think on a societal level, I think it would be great if we rediscovered our collective humanity, right? Um, because of what has been going on in the last sort of 5 or 10 years with division and culture wars and everything else. I think we've kind of lost our way. We've lost our common shared humanity, and people forget that we're on this little rock, spinning on its axis at 1,600 kilometers an hour, flying through darkness, space, and the universe, and I think we forget that. So, from a societal perspective, I'm like, let's remember our collective humanity, and let's not give everything up to the unhuman corporation or the unhuman institution, because stuff that's going on in the world is tragic, and it doesn't have to be that way. From a personal perspective, I see a lot of people still struggling with living in integrity. And living in integrity, I mean living with who they really are. So I see a lot of people with masks. I see a lot of people with Stockholm syndrome. A lot of people uh, whose stress levels, whose kind of baseline stress levels are so high that they're getting sick, right? And Gabor Mate has done a beautiful, brilliant new book called "The Myth of Normal," and it's about um, trauma and healing in a toxic culture, toxic society today. And I think that's kind of spot on with what's going on. The way we are living today, at least in the West, in the United States and Canada, is making us all very, very sick, because we are not connected to that core of who we are and living in that sort of but living in that integrity, right? So I think those are the two issues: a disconnect from humanity and a disconnect from ourselves. So like maybe they're the same thing.
Well,
So
they're definitely hand in hand, I feel. So, like, what's the solution to this then, Colin? What do folks do about this? I guess if first it all starts with ourselves, and then if they
mhm.
want to reach out and either, I don't know about help others, I don't know if that's the right way, but be of service and contribute. You know, yeah, even if it just means
Well,
speaking out, or certain things to pay attention to and certain things not to pay attention to.
yeah, look, I think it's all about being aware, and being intentional. It's about protecting yourself from with sort of that kryptonite from all of these things that are coming at us. And if you want, really define your purpose, define your destination. Don't let somebody else um, uh, design it for you. I also like this sort of the ship metaphor. Where are you navigating to? What kind of ship are you? What's your cargo? What are you bringing? Who are you bringing it to, and why are you bringing it? So, thinking about a much more sort of purpose-driven life. And you don't have to be going and getting a Nobel Peace Prize. It could be starting a family and raising, a couple of great kids, but with intention, with awareness, right? When you go to the store, look at the labels. What are you buying? Where's it from? What's the provenance? It's just wake up, people, right? And and in terms of what you do about it, I mean, I think that's an individual choice, right? I think everybody needs to decide what they want to do about it. I know I'm on a mission to humanity, integrity, like fearlessness, and then freedom, right? Freedom from psychological suffering, so you can just kind of fly. And so I think it's one person at a time. You're doing what you're doing, I'm doing what I'm doing, and I do believe that creates a ripple effect. And even when we're talking about the environment or the climate, right? Fix yourself. Fix this, and this, and this first, and the rest will follow. So that's my recipe, if you like.
Beautiful. We haven't talked about fearlessness yet, and I really love this notion of fearlessness, because I just have to echo that during what we've gone through the past few years, I saw it quite early on of how on both sides of the issue, it was getting to extremes, and there was extreme fear on both camps. And I just see that when someone is in an extreme state of fear, their nervous system suffers and their immune system gets run ragged. And I think that was the biggest thing out of all of this on both sides of it. So what do you have to say about fear and fearlessness? I know in my own journey, I went through quite an extreme fear, I would say, years ago. And so I now have that reference point to be fearless, and almost to the point where there's probably a few things that I would be better off having a little bit more fear about. The only way I see that fear is helpful is that if it's fear of wrongdoing, right? Fear of being completely unwholesome and unethical when we know better and know the consequences of it. The fear of losing one's reputation, of dishonoring oneself and one's family and friends. And I wouldn't really call that a fear either. I would just call that being mindful and respectful and knowing the consequences and knowing better. But as far as general fear, what do you have to say to it, and fearlessness too?
Yeah, look, I think unless you are in what is it, in one of those moments of fear or flight, or what is it, flight or stay? I can't remember what it is, but if it's instinctual and you have to run from a lion, yes, okay,
Fight or
fear,
flight.
great. Fight or flight. That's it. Sorry, I haven't had enough coffee yet this morning. So fight or flight, my God, absolutely, we need that, right? But when fear begins to dominate your sort of all of your decisions throughout the day, and yeah, I'm not gonna don't want to go down the if you're a crazy psychopath and but we can save that for another conversation. But fear to me is just the most limiting energy around. And the reason that I like to speak about being fearless is because I have jumped off the deep end so many times in my life after sort of the 2001 crash, right? It was like, all right, how bad can it get? Try it, do it, say yes, go for it, dive into the unknown. I've done that for the last 25 years, and it's been like this incredible roller coaster ride, right? With the lowest lows and the highest highs, and here I am, right? So so my message is, I've survived, I've done it, it's been exhilarating. You can do it too. Break out of your circular loop, or the cassette tape that I've dated myself, or the press repeat lifestyle that you're on. Get out, go for it, break it. So I'm like, smash it, right? Because of the life that I've had. And what I tell to people is, if you want to be fearless, these are kind of my pointers, right? It's like that wall of protection. So toxicity, no, gone. Get that away. Whether it's friends, family, news, social media, whatever it is, work, get out of there. Begin to listen to your body. Another great Gabor Mate book is When the Body Says No, right? This thing is telling us stuff all day long. It's sending us messages, right? But because of our sort of the velocity of our society that we live in, we don't listen, right? So wall of protection, then listen to this, design the life that you want. I've got my vision boards and my boards, they're all here. I paint a picture of what the next chapter is going to look like, and it always works. So once you've got the picture, then you break it down into bite-sized, goals that you can manage. And you have to introduce daily rituals to stay on track, because again, we're like being unless you're somewhere very quiet and spiritual, but if you're in the modern West like you and I are, you need to have daily rituals to make sure that you are staying right here, right? Staying within who you are. And then I think I've kind of said this before, forget about what you learned. Forget about the conditioning that's not serving you, and keep the stuff that is, but get rid of the stuff that isn't. And that might involve some trauma therapy, some trauma and loss therapy. It might involve some grief therapy. It might involve, getting onto YouTube and, doing going down the rabbit hole with Joe Dispenza videos. It doesn't matter, but forget it and start reprogramming. And that's probably it. Those are kind of the you have to take proactive steps to protect yourself from fear, because we live in a society, in a world that is driven by it. It's a big consumer product, right?
It totally is, and it's almost shocking how many people make decisions out of fear, and how many people are just so don't want to leave their comfort zone either. But then I know the other end of the extreme, like they need to find a comfort zone because they're doing so many risky things all the time. So it's a balance. But yeah, especially for people that are coming up an impasse, I had to completely get off the train I was on in order to get on. What I do didn't exist. I had to create it myself, pretty much.
Sure.
So that's right. And for me, it's found helpful having this deep trust, like you're saying, that you survived everything up to this point. Trusting that we are doing the best we can, and if we could do better, we would.
Well, I think we're much more resilient than we think we are. I think all you have to do is look at the statistics and the data around mental health and health in the United States, and to me, that's symptomatic of not living in your integrity and being fearful of not changing and getting out of that closed loop. So what do you want? Which would you prefer? Right?
Exactly. And we so many people have built up so many facades and things and the way they relate to people too. And know that, yeah, sometimes when those are breaking down, it's not going to be pleasant and it's not going to look nice a lot of times, but ultimately in the long term, I feel people will be glad they have done that, and live in integrity, and just can feel the benefit in the body. And like you're saying, the body won't lie. Our mind lies so much to ourselves, has no shame. It will do so much, but the body, it doesn't do that, does it? Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, Colin, it's been a pleasure. Enjoy, very, very helpful and enlightening here too. Would you like to leave folks with what events you have going on? What kind of how people can get in touch with you? In any final words too of what you want to a message you want to leave with folks? Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, anybody can get in touch with me on my website. It's just colinkingsmill.com. It's easy. But I guess the message that I'd like to leave people with is that it doesn't have to be like this. If you are in a fearful place, or a struggling place, or a place of psychological suffering, just know that it doesn't have to be this way. There are ways out. So reach out. not to me necessarily, but just reach out. There's all sorts of apps and videos, and I know you like Insight Timer. I like it too, and Sam Harris's. There's all sorts of apps and videos and resources available today that there weren't 20 years ago, right? To us maybe. I mean, they've been available for thousands of years, but there's resources out there, so go get them. You don't deserve to be in psychological suffering at all.
Beautiful. All right, Colin, thanks again for joining, and may you all be blessed with the optimal health in life that you wish and desire for your long-term welfare and happiness, and for that of all beings everywhere. May all beings everywhere realize awakening and be free.
Thanks for listening. Check out integratingpresence.com for show notes and similar material.